Good morning and welcome to the Tuesday, August 29th County Commission meeting. If you'd stand for the pledge, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Again, welcome and thank you for being here. I'd like to remind everybody to silence their cell phones. Meeting documents are next to Commissioner Bender, and if you need a listening device, Craig can help you here in the front. And with that, we'll go to routine business. Item 1 is to consider a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Item 2 is to approve the minutes from August 22nd.
To approve the
Second.
minutes?
A motion, excuse me, and a second to approve the minutes of August 22nd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Also, item B is to approve the Minnehaha County and City of Sioux Falls minutes of the 22nd also.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion and a second to approve those. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Unanimously passes. Item 3 is bills to be paid of $261,496.14.
Pay the bills.
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments? Mr.
Chairman?
Barth?
You know, the bills are thankfully a little smaller this week, and so I think we're getting right down to the nitty-gritty of what we pay every week. But this includes $70,000 for electric costs and $10,000 for water. And this is just, you know, running the courthouse and our campus on a daily basis. And, you know, there's obviously other bills for the coroner and this and that, but I think this is the basic bills today.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second to approve the bills. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. There's no reports this morning. Item 5A is to consider a motion to approve the routine personnel action.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the routine personnel actions. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Item B is to authorize the chair to sign a 2017 agreement between the Minnehaha County and Lincoln County for human resource services. Good morning, Carrie.
Good morning, Carrie Deaver from Human Resources. Since about 2013, Minnehaha County's been providing contracted HR services to Lincoln County. This year during the budget process, we reviewed rates and talked about the upcoming year. And so you're seeing the 2018 contract come before you a little bit earlier than normal. As part of those discussions, what we're recommending for next year's rate is $74,690 or $964 rather. That will include all HR services for next year for Lincoln County, other than benefits administration, flexible spending accounts, and wellness programming. So a few revisions to the contract that you've seen over the past few years, but if you're ready, we're recommending approval.
Do you have questions for Carrie this morning? This has been a relationship that we started 3 years ago.
In 2013, so this we'll be looking at our 6th year already. Time
Wow.
moves fast, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the joint human resource service contract. All those in favor say
Aye.
aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Thank you. No applications for abatement. Item 7 is a notice and request for a hearing on September 12th at 9 o'clock to consider a 2017 annual, is it burned? Not sure. JAG Joint Spending Plan for Minnehaha County and the City of Sioux Falls. And item B is a notice from Benton Township of the following speed limit change from 20 to 35 on 257th Street at the end of 4th Street in Crooks, going west 2,403.3 feet. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. Joe Bosman, the Sheriff's Office. Didn't know if anybody had any questions on the notice of hearing for the Burn JAG project that's coming up.
Thank you.
No problem. It's just a grant that we get awarded. It's split between the county and city. There is a requirement in the grant that there is a a period of public comment. So requesting notice today to come back on September 12th at 9 o'clock during that commission meeting and open up for public comment if anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions about that hearing?
No?
Thank you,
Thank
sir. Appreciate you coming. Somebody's in too big of a hurry this morning. Me. We do need a motion and a second on the notice of hearing for September 12th.
It just says notice, not, do we need, okay. Make a motion.
I second it.
See?
You
She
were
was
right.
right again. We have a motion and a second to approve the notice of hearing on September 12th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Where's my gun?
Yeah, we got a pheasant in the audience.
No comment. Item 9 is a petition for compromise. Good morning.
Melinda Storley, Commission Assistant. Before use compromise of lien DPNO 74303. It represents poor relief, public defender and advocate fees, and COBRA insurance payments for the petitioner's ex-spouse. 100% of the debt on this lien was service that the ex-spouse received. The petitioner is in the process of closing on a home on September 5th for her and her son and believes that she's not responsible for any of these debts. She and her spouse did not marry until 2012. He was immediately incarcerated shortly after for a couple of years and had not heard from him for several years. So she presents a divorce decree to the commission where it states that the petitioner's ex-spouse is responsible for all of his debts, including debts where her name has been added, and she is responsible for all of her debts, and that's what she's relying on. And so her request is to remove her name from the joint lien and leave the remainder of the lien in the name of the ex-spouse.
Thank you, Melinda. Anybody have any questions? Is the petitioner here? They do have the ability to speak if they would like. And they don't have to be identified, so I don't see them. Commissioner Barth?
So Melinda, some of these debts, though, were incurred during the time they were married, but their divorce decree directs those to be paid by the individual.
And according to her narrative, shortly after they were married and he went off and then got out 2 years later, they never shared a home again. They remained separated from that period. She was unable to contact him to attempt to get a divorce and has not heard from him until this period to be able to complete her divorce decree.
So
Any other questions for Melinda?
Another question then I guess
Sure.
is, so the assets from this relationship all went to her then? In other words, the existing home, whatever other assets, did she get it all and then he got his debts? And I guess I sort of wonder what the state's attorney's view would be on this.
So I think you were provided with the stipulation and decree of divorce, so that would give you a sense of at least the marital and non-marital property that was divided. I believe that, in terms of your authority, you have authority to take action, and the standard is what's in the best interests of the county and the circumstances of the case. As you've been provided, the window of time is between 2010 and 2016. The marriage having been in March of 2012. I think at least the authority under the statute is pretty broad with regard to attachment of the lien upon joint tenancy property, homestead, and husband and wife property under 2814-9. So I believe you've got the discretion to make the decision that you.
It really doesn't show any significant assets, so I'm guessing that there wasn't any ownership equity, so to speak.
And these are difficult situations. I mean, she clearly is legally responsible for these debts. The divorce decree is an agreement between those parties as to how they're going to allocate their debts. It's not really binding necessarily on the county. But it does, in my mind, appear that most of these debts were occurred after the time that he was released from jail. We're relying on the representation of the applicant that they had no relationship after that point, and they're not here for us to question. So that puts us in kind of a difficult bind, I think, under these circumstances. She clearly got married at a time when she knew that there was, an impending difficulty in their relationship, with him going off to prison shortly after they got married. So I'm a bit in a quandary as to what to do in this circumstance. I think that if she is going to buy a house and put that on the tax rolls for the county, that given the amount of money that we're forgiving in this circumstance, I think that it makes sense to go ahead and release her from these debts and put them on the on her ex-spouse, on Richard Jordan, and give her an opportunity to become a property taxpayer and provide some stability for her family, and hope that improves their lives and therefore improves the lives of everybody in the county. So I would make a motion to remove the lien from Pamela and leave it solely in the name of Richard Jordan.
I'd second that with a comment.
Go ahead.
Pointed Jeff, sorry. I agree with what Commissioner Bender said. This is difficult because we can legally assess her these charges too. But he has, I'm assuming it's him because she didn't know about him. There have been not significant, but there have been regular payments. Now the last payment was made a year ago, and then he has filed for poor relief shortly thereafter. But I would hope that since there is a history of him paying on this lien, he is aware of it, and so we will hope that putting it in his name, he will continue to pay on this lien, and we will see something from it. And hopefully, putting her in a house is going to be positive for us too. So,
Commissioner Karski?
Never thought of it in the perspective, as Commissioner Bender put it in, that we're relying on her representation as to these are the facts of what happened. But that's all we have to go on. And, based on the circumstances when you read this, what we are legally able to do and maybe what's right, I'm going to be in favor of the removing this from her and putting it onto him, just because it appears to be the right thing to do in this circumstance.
Any other comments or questions? If not, we have a motion to place the debt on the spouse, the female, who is to remain anonymous, and remove the that in totality and place the debt on the former husband, correct? Mm-hmm. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion unanimously passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our opportunity for public comment. We're at the point where if anyone has any information they'd like to share with us, or questions or comments on an item that is not on the agenda, we'd be happy to hear from you. Good morning, David.
Good morning. I'm David Zokaitis, and this is part 3 of 3 of a mini-series on drug prohibition. It's a big problem in our country, and I think we should address it and see what maybe we can do to improve the world. All right, now, I went to a seminar recently, Call to Freedom, here in town, and one of the things that they said is that human trafficking, aka teenage prostitution, frequently starts with abuse at home, and you're sometimes pimped by your relatives to pay for expensive addictions. I think that's terrible, and there really has to be a better way. We need to reduce addiction, and we need to reduce the cost of addiction. some of the current propaganda out there in mainstream news media is that cannabis is a gateway drug to nastier things. But the research does not support this contention whatsoever. The gateway drugs are actually alcohol and nicotine, not marijuana. There's a reference there, National Academy of Sciences, no conclusive evidence that marijuana is a gateway drug. Then if you want to look at drug usage versus prohibition, another nice scholarly article says that the negative consequences with illegal drugs are mostly derived from prohibition and not from the consumption. Scathing criticism of drug prohibition. The second quote there, the evidence suggests that the social costs of prohibition are vastly greater than its benefits. Not what we want to hear, but that's the reality, and there's my citation. Then we should look at incarceration versus treatment. Treatment is more cost effective. I've seen more than one study that says this. And there it is from, there's a citation. It looks like if we used community-based treatment programs, we could save billions of dollars. And yet, that's not what we do. I think there's something wrong with the world. And then we try to look at who benefits from drug prohibition. Well, pharmaceuticals do because they've got less competition. Why would you get an expensive prescription when you can go down to the corner and smoke some weed? Alcohol and tobacco industries, again, less competition. Organized crime is all for it. More business. Terrorists like it, gives them an income stream. Prison industry benefits from more customers. And if you want to build a dictatorship or an oligarchy, promote fear. Make an enemy, like drugs. And then you can violate civil rights, all in the name of keeping people safe, when in actuality that's not what you're trying to do whatsoever. I found this nice reference. It says that the introduction of medical marijuana laws leads to a decrease in crime. Isn't that interesting? There's my citation. Check it out. The World Health Organization in 2014 came out to recommend decriminalization. They wanted to do that so they could reduce the spread of HIV. I don't think we're ready to decriminalize injectable drugs, but it's nice to know that doing so would help reduce the spread of AIDS. Portugal decriminalized everything about a decade or two ago. That they, in their experience, this reduced crime, reduced addiction, gave them more money for social programs, and again, there's a reference. Decriminalization works. If I get to be mayor of Sioux Falls, there's a limit to what I can do because I'm only the mayor of Sioux Falls and not the president of the USA. But what I would like to do is start a drug amnesty / treatment program where people turn in their stash and head off to treatment. And if we could do that, we could reduce addiction, we could reduce incarceration, spend a lot less money on jails, reduce crime, try to reduce this climate of fear, reduce the cost to government, promote public safety, help people heal their lives. Marvelous, marvelous suite of benefits from that one change. Now, if you've read my citations there, I believe in evidence-based policies, not propaganda, like facts, not fear. I want to focus my resources on big issues. Now, if you look at the number of deaths caused by illegal drugs, it's a small problem on a social scale. It's a big problem on a personal scale if you're addicted, but on a social scale, heart disease kills 40 times as many people as illegal drugs. And legal drugs kill more people than illegal drugs. So by those references, illegal drugs in and of themselves is a small problem. It's the criminalization that's the larger problem. And it would be nice if we could persuade people that cannabis is safer than alcohol and then switch from one to the other. And the more treatment, the less incarceration, I think the better off we will all be. And if you can go and look at the world a little deeper, it would be nice if we could all reach responsibly with and deal with life and social issues. And then if we had a happier world and had something to love, then there would be less need for addiction in the first place. So, yes, if you can heal people, they don't want drugs. And we should all try to enjoy the life that we have and look out at Lake Madison and smile for a little while.
Thank you, David. Any other individuals who would like to speak about an item that's not on the agenda? Don't see anybody coming forward. We'll go to item 10 in the regular business. That's a public hearing to consider an application for special event on-sale liquor license for Prairie Pasta Inc. for an event on September 16th at Blue Haven Barn and Gardens. Olivia.
Yes, Prairie Pasta Inc. will be catering a wedding on September 16th at Blue Haven Barn and Gardens. And so this is for their on-sale liquor license, and I've received no concerns or objections from Sheriff's Department, Planning and Zoning, or the State's Attorney's Office.
Any questions for Olivia? This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone who would like to speak for the permit, or anyone who would like to speak as an opponent, we'd be happy to hear from them. No one moving, so
Make a motion to approve that application.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the special event on-sale liquor license for Prairie Pasta. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion unanimously passes. Item 11 is a public hearing to consider a special event malt beverage and on-sale retailer's license for Full Circle Sandwich Kitchen LLC.
Yes, Full Circle Sandwich Kitchen will be catering a harvest dinner on September 9th, 2017 at the property of Jerry Ward, who does have a conditional use permit to hold 4 events a year. So he is looking for 2 licenses, one for the malt beverage and one for the wine.
Okay. Again, this is a public hearing. If anyone has any support or opposition, they are willing to come forward. Any support or opposition? Is there a motion from the,
Make a motion to approve?
Second.
a motion and a second to approve the special event malt beverage for Full Circle Sandwich? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion unanimously passes. Item 12 is a public hearing to consider a motion to declare property legally described as printed as a public nuisance and enact South Dakota Codified Law 21-10-6. Kevin.
Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. As you just heard, this is a public nuisance evaluation to see if you want to declare this property a public nuisance. The property is located at 26345 463rd Avenue, and is owned by Kim and Victoria Halverson. I have a reference map to where that is located. The public nuisance initially started, I received a phone call on March 9th this year and visited the site for the first time March 14th. I took many pictures throughout the summer and sent several letters. A final letter was sent on June 6th to abate the nuisance, and upon inspection of a deadline, the nuisance was still not yet abated. The property owner has not contacted me in any way, either by phone or by mail, or there's been no changes, and you'll see this through the pictures of the property that I'll be showing. I sent notice to the property owner for today's meeting on August 29th via certified mail, return receipt. I have not received notice that mail has been picked up. And I also sent it via first-class mail, anticipating that he may not pick it up, or the property owner may not pick it up, so he can still pick up the first-class mail. Our public nuisance ordinance lists a number of different things that can be listed as a public nuisance, including unlicensed motor vehicles, deteriorated wreck or dismantled inoperable property in unusable condition. And I'll go through the pictures to show you. This is a photo of the changes between imagery in 2014 and imagery in 2017. And you can see that there's a pile that has been growing in front of the house. From the right-of-way, it appears that the pile of junk in front of the house appears to be mostly air conditioning units, and there are several other unlicensed cars on the property too that have not been moved or appear to be unlicensed from the road. And I'll go through these pictures. I believe I have them, so you have them in the same picture orientation in a row ordered on here. So here would be the March site visit, a April site visit. You can see a little clearer without the snow, all the air conditioning units, and there's a vehicle on the right side of the picture. There would be a June picture, in July, early August. Yeah, and there's August, and the most recent picture I have. So that shows you the main focus of the property, and then to the right you can see there's a couple of abandoned, like a washer and dryer. I think there's a dishwasher out there, as well as the two vehicles in the photo as well, and they appear in all these pictures. The property, as far as I'm aware, is not being lived in, from what the complaint initially notified us, and equalization does have it listed as is not listed as a owner-occupied house. However, the house is being visited because there is cattle on the property, so that I can visiting. You can see tracks going in and out of the property to feed the cattle, so it's not like it's completely abandoned property. At that, I suppose my request would be that you, as a county commission, can declare this property a public nuisance and enact South Dakota Codified Law 2110-6, which allows us to clear out the public nuisance and assess the cost to the property value, property taxes. So, is there any
Thank you.
questions?
Oh, excuse me, do you have something else?
Nope. Is there any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Kevin? I think Commissioner
I have a couple.
Heiberger was first.
Kevin and I emailed back and forth a little bit, and you found a phone number. Was that for Victoria, or an address in Sioux Falls?
So upon
I don't remember what.
Yeah, there was a couple of commissioners that called me, and Cindy was one of them, concerned about the lack of contact, and if the property owner really has been notified. So I went to the equalization office, and we searched for possible other addresses. The combined name Kim and Victoria Halverson do not own any other property, but if you just search for Halverson, we found a property in Sioux Falls owned by Victoria Halverson as a possible secondary address we can reach out to.
Sure.
I'm just, when were the property taxes last paid on this property?
I recall looking at that at some point, and they were paid up, but I can't recall exactly when.
So they're paid up through so far this year? So
that was-
somebody's
that
paying
was-
them?
Yep, somebody is paying them, yep.
Okay, because I was thinking if they're not paying property taxes, it was gonna end up on our property. We were gonna end up with it anyway, but, I'm concerned about the lack of notification, so.
Just a quick question. Did you send the same notice to the location, and you have not received any verification and it's not listed as owner occupied, so there's not an owner living there, correct?
So it's not listed as owner occupied, so there would be no owner living there, but it is listed as the contact point for equalization to send tax notices and
Okay.
other items.
Mr. Karski?
First of all, again, I always feel that as a landowner, you have certain property rights that shouldn't be infringed upon, but I don't think turning your rural residential property into a landfill is an acceptable use of property, and this is unacceptable. At that same point, notification to that person, and we've sent numerous letters. The residents had a fire in it a few years ago. Nobody's lived in it since that time, from what I understand, or probably hasn't.
That's my understanding too, yep.
Okay. I called Kevin to talk to him yesterday too, and our efforts to, there's no noxious weeds, there's cattle there, there's some maintenance of the property going on. I'm concerned that maybe we haven't done enough to reach this person, and based on that, I'm gonna, after comments, probably ask for consideration to maybe delay this for another week or maybe 2 weeks, just till we can make certain that we've exhausted all possible means to contact the potential property owners to get this cleaned up. This is not acceptable, but I've had it come back and bite me before, where we sent mail when I was with the city to somebody that did not live in their or that lived in their property but did not have a mailbox and did not receive mail there, and they claim that they just didn't receive it. We're going to be saddling them with I'm sure, several $1,000 tax lien or lien on their property to clean this up, and I just would like to make sure that we have exhausted all reasonable means to contact this person before we do that.
Other questions or comments for Kevin? Thank you, Kevin. Again, this is a public hearing, so if anybody would like to speak for or against this proposal, we'd be happy to listen.
It may be unconventional, but you could put a big sign at the end of the driveway, and they would certainly notice that the next time they go in to feed their cattle.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak either for or against? And again, you do need to identify yourself, and you do need to give us your address.
Oh, I'm not sure about the address. I live across the street. My name is Ursel Fortney, and I live across the street.
Excuse me, could you spell that so she can get it in the minutes, please?
Can't spell Ursel?
Probably, but not right.
Yeah, I'm used to that. ERCELLFORTNEY.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't live across the street, I shouldn't say. I own the property across the street, and somebody else lives there. My father-in-law lives there.
Okay.
Just to clarify that. The only reason I'm here is that place is a dump. It's not well taken care of. It needs to be cleaned up. If that guy's giving him all the notices that he says he has, let's get on with it. It isn't gonna cost that much to clean that place up. Just picking up a whole bunch of appliances. I used to live on 41st Street, pretty close to the dump, and we had a rat problem. And I don't know if there's rats over there, but once they move in, they're awful tough to get rid of. And basically, that's what you got there is a landfill. And I think he's a HVAC contractor. I'm a contractor too, and I'm pretty sure he's an HVAC contractor, and he might have some value in that stuff. I don't know, but as far as I'm concerned, he could have put it behind the house instead of the front of it. And you can see none of the property really is that well taken care of. So anyway, we have to think about our property values and having that eyesore right there, and there's I guess that's probably all I got to say. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sir?
Excuse me, I think he's got a question.
Sir, I have a question for you, and I'm going to call you Ursel because I've never called anyone that. Is there, when did this property start going downhill?
Well, I'm 66 years old, so my memory isn't what it used to be. But it's been like this for a long time.
A long time.
A long time. And I think that you showed a picture, and I don't know when that picture was, when it was clean, but it hasn't been cleaned up for a long time. So, this has just been growing, and I'm not sure it's growing anymore. I haven't noticed the change, but it looks, you can see in the pictures,
Who owns the cattle, do you know?
I think he does. I
Okay,
think Kim does.
thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions for Ursula at this point?
There were some animals on the road 6 months ago, something like 9 months ago, and my wife stopped to tell them that the animals were on the road, and there was nobody there, nobody living there. I've never seen anybody over there taking care of those cows, so I don't know what's going on with them. So,
Thank you for coming.
you bet.
Is there anyone else who would like to make comments about the petition and the public hearing? You do need to identify yourself also.
Warren Guidey, 46134, 263rd Street. And I got the property just across the road to the east from this place. Now, you're worried about him getting contacted. I dealt with him probably a year and a half ago with his cattle getting out, and they got in with mine. And I got him caught, and I took him down to a sale barn. And then I called his folks and told them what I did, and I had told them at the sale barn to put the check when you sold them in his name. Well, he got down there and got him pulled out of there before the sale, so he's been contacting him. I'm sure he's getting the notices. I wouldn't wait any longer. If he wants to respond, he would have responded. He's just going to wait and see what you guys do with this, so I think you've given him enough time, and we're getting tired of looking at it.
Any questions for Orrin?
Just a
Commissioner?
comment, if he knows where his parents are, maybe we can send a letter through the parents and give it, like
And
Commissioner
I'm-
Karski said, is it 2 weeks and get it
Yeah,
cleaned
I
up
just
before the
looked up
snow
his
falls.
folks' number in the phone book. I can get it to you. I might even have Kim's cell phone, but when I called him and told him I had his cattle caught, he never did call me back, so that's why they went down at a sale barn. So I think you folks remember his cattle being out before, so.
If you could give that info of your contact to our planning guys, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be
Please.
If I don't, I'll have to maybe call a renter that rents the Helverson ground, and then
That'd be
I can
good
get
too.
his folks' phone number, so I can get it to him.
That would be
Great.
good. That would be good.
Any other questions or comments for Orrin?
Okay.
Thank you for coming. Good morning.
Good morning. Don Reichert, 26373 463rd Avenue. We own the property just south of him, about 14 acres. Numerous times we've had to put his cattle in for him. They've been on the highway. You can contact the sheriff's department, and they've been out there numerous times to get cattle in over the last several years. When he moved in there, he started dumping stuff. And I don't know when he came, but probably about 2012 or maybe before that. I would say that the notices that have been sent, he's probably received because he responds to nothing. His past history, if you look it up online, is not good. That's all I have to say. I think we need to do something now.
Thank you, Don. Anybody have any questions for Don? I did notice when Don was talking that the sheriff's department was nodding their head. So I think there's been efforts to contact these individuals frequently. Anyone else like to speak on behalf of this public hearing? If not, I'll turn it back to the commission. Commissioner Barth?
Well, Kevin's coming up.
I was just coming up if you had any other comments. I suppose if you are going to postpone this, I'd suggest that we go out at least 2 weeks, and then if you go out to one more than that, to give me a little more time to contact with the full 10 days, would push us out to the 26th of September, because you don't have the meeting on the 19th.
So, Mr. Chairman, since Kevin's back there, did they have a mailbox on the end of the driveway?
I guess I don't recall.
It doesn't appear like nobody
Looks like no.
has seen one.
Thank you.
I have a legal question, if I might, if nobody else has any questions.
Stay up there, though.
Go ahead if you do.
Well, I just was going to say, you know, I appreciate the comments by Commissioner Karski, et cetera, but you know, if we approve this, we're not going to send a bulldozer out, you know, Wednesday. It's going to be a while before any actual action happens. And I wonder if we couldn't go on a dual track and start the process of looking for contractors. Isn't that what we would normally do, Kevin?
Yep.
Looking for a contractor to clean it up and redouble our efforts at contacting the property owner. Because otherwise we delay for 2 weeks, then we delay 2 weeks getting a contractor, and then it snows. Winter is coming.
I was advised by legal counsel since it does have an address, there does have to be a mailbox there, correct?
Well, Mr. Chairman, it just seems to me that the mail hasn't come back that's been sent.
Yep.
The post office allowed a certified letter to be sent. There's a 911 address. So I have to believe that because there was an address, the post office accepted the mail, there must be a mailbox there. It's not a post office box situation in-house. So I have to believe that there must be a mailbox there, whether or not anyone saw it.
Commissioner Bender?
And just as a point of clarification, what I thought I heard you say is that the address you mailed it to is also the address listed for mailing tax notifications.
Yes. Yep.
And the taxes have been kept up,
Yes.
so they are getting their mail. Commissioner Karski?
Taxes could be paid by an escrow through a bank also, so I don't know if that says anything or not, but I do like Commissioner Barth's approach of, let's approve this action, but let's not quit trying to reach out to this person saying, hey, we've approved this action, and we're looking for a contractor to come out and remove this stuff, and the anticipated date of this to be done will be this time, and your final notice, however you want to put it. But I think we continue to reach out and say, hey, this action's been approved and the wheels are turning to make this happen. So I'm okay with moving forward if we don't stop trying to reach this person.
Commissioner Heiberger?
I have a question too. As far as surplus, Kevin, we would sell all the scrap metal and that would go back on, as credit towards his bill. But the vehicles, I'm thinking if there's anything that's salvageable in vehicles, would that go on our sheriff's auction coming up? Is that how we dispose of cars?
So in the past, my recollection is yes, we would sell the junk scrap metal as part of the bill. And then with the vehicles, the towing company will take them into impound. And my understanding is that when the towing company either gets paid by the property owner or they go through the process of obtaining the license for that or obtaining the title.
So we really don't recoup anything
So
on
we don't-
vehicles.
we
So
wouldn't do anything
we're
with
on
the
the mess of that.
vehicles,
Okay.
Commissioner Karski?
So the towing company's going to charge him an impound fee per vehicle, probably of $30, $40 a day while that process is going on?
Yeah, I suppose. And yeah, they would have to have the vehicles licensed.
The registration transferred, yep.
Yep.
And that could take weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, interesting.
Mr. Chairman, in regards to Commissioner Heiberger's comment, it seems to me that there are some chemicals used in air conditioning that are expensive to dispose of. And so rather than taking them to the proper place to get rid of Freon or whatever other chemical is in these, it might actually be a dump for these chemical things along with the machinery involved. And I just mentioned that, but I think we'll find out more about that going forward. At this point, I would make a motion to proceed with this nuisance abatement and to, on a dual course, redouble our efforts to contact the person, and perhaps we can get Warren to help us get that info going. And so that's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any more public comment? Last time, is there any more public comment? Let's do a roll call vote, and as long as in the last one to speak, I think we've frankly given this couple the opportunity for 5 years to get their act cleaned up, and it's now a public safety because of the cattle issue, and frankly, I do know that some escrows do go to the bank, but in my case, my bank calls me if I walk across the road too slow because they're worried that I'll collect on life insurance, so,
You've got me as your heir there, right?
that's true. You get all the liabilities. I really think that it's time to move forward with this because it'll take a couple of weeks to get the process rolling, and that's plenty of time for the neighbors to feel comfortable that something's going to happen, because if he really, really wanted to take care of this, he would have showed up today and had a reason for not doing it. So we're back to a roll call vote, please.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Hiberger.
Aye.
Motion unanimously passes 5-0. Start the process, please. Item 13, excuse me, is a joint briefing between the City of Sioux Falls and Lloyd Companies on a proposed creation of a tax increment financing district, application 2017A. Brent and Erica, good morning. Welcome back.
It's actually going to be Dustin today. Dustin Powers with the City of Sioux
Still
Falls.
welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Dustin Powers with the City of Sioux Falls Economic Development Office. Today we're here to present you a briefing on tax incremental financing application 2017A, which is the proposed TIF number 21, the TIF district number 21 for the City of Sioux Falls. Within the district that's shown on the screen, there are 9 parcels that are identified. The current property assessment for the cumulative of all of these parcels is approximately $400,000 with a tax bill of a little over $8,200 with the current year taxes. In March of this year, the city released an RFP for development of 4 of these parcels. Those parcels are the 2 easternmost parcels along adjoining the western portion of Phillips Avenue, and then the 2 narrow parcels that adjoin those 2 parcels. And so those county IDs are 87576, 87577, 81592, and 81015. As part of that RFP process, Lloyd Companies submitted a proposal that included the development of the 4 city parcels along with 3 parcels adjoining to the west. And those parcel IDs are 27669, 27670, and 27671. Lloyd's proposal was submitted as part of the RFP process, and during a selection process, Lloyd Companies was selected for their development of all the parcels that were identified. And Erica back here is with Lloyd Companies is here to present what that project is and their TIF request. I'll turn it over to Erica, but after Erica's done, I'll have a few more follow-up slides with regards to the city's evaluation of the TIF request and then the process moving forward with the TIF request.
Thank you, Dustin. Does anyone have any questions for Dustin right now? If not, Erica? Good morning.
Good morning, Commission. My name is Erica Beck. I'm with Lloyd Companies, 101 South Reed Street, Suite 201. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our project to you today. Somebody's scrolling this without me. Thank you. Perfect. As Dustin commented, we had an opportunity to submit a proposal for the city's RFP that they issued in March. And in doing so, we submitted not only for the city-owned property along Phillips Avenue, but also privately owned property that we had under contract on Main Avenue and now subsequently own. In our proposal, what we're trying to do more than anything is create additional density within the downtown area in both the form of apartment homes as well as commercial property. In starting this project, one of the things that we really tried to take note of and consideration for was parking, solely because we're in a downtown area first and foremost, and we wanted to create that density, but in order to do that, we knew we needed to have parking on site without necessarily having to rely on additional parking within the city's parking system. And then also knowing, just from the standpoint that the Levitt Pavilion is scheduled to open in the spring of 2019, we wanted to make sure that we were able to house enough parking on this site to support our development and not necessarily have to worry where our residents or commercial customers would park. So within this development, what you'll see is that entire site with the two buildings. Underneath that is excavated, the entire site. So there's 98,000 square feet of space underneath those two buildings that's excavated and will be utilized as underground parking. In that area, we have about 260 parking spaces. And then also what we're proposing to do with the city's approval, of course, is to build out angled parking on both sides of Phillips Avenue, so west and east side of Phillips Avenue. All of 2nd Street will have angled parking and be completely reconstructed. And then all of Main Avenue from 2nd to 3rd will also have angled parking on both sides of the street as well. This picture in front of you, the rendering in front of you, when we made the proposal to the city, didn't actually show the angled parking on the east side of the street. That was a discussion point that occurred after our proposal and after our initial couple of meetings with the city. So overall, it's a $43 million project, just over $43 million in total. We'll have just over 200 apartment homes that will be created within this entire development. We'll also have roughly 20,000 square feet of commercial space on that main floor right along Phillips Avenue. There will be an elevated boardwalk to access that commercial space. We're hopeful that we'll be able to secure a restaurant tenant for the corner of 2nd and Phillips. And if you go to the next, yeah, that one right there. This is actually a picture of the corner of 2nd and Phillips, and you can see that we're anticipating a restaurant tenant for that corner space. And then we also hope to secure additional commercial tenants along that main Phillips Avenue area that will really create more vibrancy in that area, and then also support not only just the 200 apartment homes that we anticipate creating with this development, but also the 140 that already exist just south of there, and then the additional units that have been created, both condos and apartments, further south on 6th and Phillips as well. So with all of that density of apartment homes and condos that are being created in that area, we think we'll be able to create more of a sustainable commercial product along Phillips Avenue, which ideally then helps support the Levitt customers as well. If you scroll to the next one. This is a site plan for our project. One of the unique things that we're trying to accommodate here is not only creating a mixed-use environment with the commercial and the apartment homes, but also creating a lot of exterior amenity space for our residents and the public just in general. So we've got a patio here that's shown on the very south side of the building along Phillips Avenue. We're hoping that that connects to a coffee shop or something of that nature in the future, so that people can come out and enjoy, a beverage, potentially coffee, and sit out on that patio and listen to things that are going on across the street at the Levitt. And then you'll also see on the corner of 2nd and Phillips, we've got a patio associated there. All streetscaping will, of course, be done with the project, and hopefully create more of that really active downtown environment that you feel further south in the downtown area, but in this area instead. The interior courtyard of this project makes it somewhat unique as far as apartment communities go. In Sioux Falls, we don't necessarily have anything quite like this, let alone downtown where we've got an outdoor pool. But in a lot of the programs that we had an opportunity to go into or around the region in Des Moines and Minneapolis and St. Paul and such, a lot of the downtown apartment communities offer these types of lifestyle amenities to their residents and customers. And so that's really what we are trying to create. So we have roughly 50,000 square feet of outdoor amenity space that will be programmed into this project as well. As far as the TIF goes, one of the things that we really struggled with, can I turn this on? Is that okay? Just want to give you a picture here. I think pictures help a little bit, but one of the things that we struggled with, of course, is we've done a lot of work that Lloyd Companies has in downtown over the last decade, if not a little bit more than that. And throughout all of those experiences have run into a lot of different challenges associated with contamination. This site is really no different than that. The city, of course, has done a lot of work in conjunction with the federal government, EPA, and the South Dakota Department of Natural and Environmental Resources to clean up the area. A good portion of it's actually identified as a brownfield site as well. Whoops.
Upside down.
But this is what it used to look like, you know. So in 2004, this would have been a pretty good picture, pretty good indicator, maybe just a little bit before that, excuse me, more like 2000, before the city had an opportunity to go in and purchase the old pit salvage yard and incentivize the I-29 Brick Company to move out of this location, and then obviously move forward with the Phillips to the Falls project and the dedication of the Brownsfield site and capping of all of that environmental contamination on Falls Park West. There's still contamination left at the site, even though that has all occurred. So one of the things that we did was we had a phase 1 and a phase 2 completed. In our proposal, in our response back to the city, we identified the results of those environmental studies and basically just stated that, you know, we needed some assistance in making sure that we decreased some of our risk of the project and created a more level playing field as far as development downtown goes versus development outside of downtown. And one of those risks is obviously the environmental issues that we know we're going to face. So right now, what we're anticipating for environmental costs on that project alone is about $2.7 million. And that's for the removal of lead, petroleum, and then volatile organic compounds. We've had studies done, again, through Geotech, who is our consultant on the site, and they've been working also with South Dakota DENR and have come up with some remedial action plans for us to follow, and that's where that number comes from. So the bulk of our TIF request of $4.1 million is to cover the expenses associated with that remediation. That will also, what we've also asked the city for is assistance in removal of the existing buildings on the privately owned portion of this site, so along Main Avenue. There's some asbestos that has to be removed along with that, and then an old tank in the building as well. But the bulk of the contamination comes from, you know, that site in particular. So it's an old dirt basement. There were a lot of things that were brought into that dirt basement and basically broken apart and salvaged, and unfortunately all of that leached into the ground. So that's the bulk of what we're cleaning up. The TIF is, again, a total of $4.1 million is what we're asking for. We're estimating that will be paid off in about 13 and a half to 14 years. As Dustin indicated, the current taxes that are being paid on that entire site, entire project site, are just over $8,000 per year. When the entire project is completed, we're anticipating that goes up to roughly $450,000 to $460,000 per year, just assuming what year it is. So all of that then comes back to help reimburse some of those costs that I was just referring to. Other specific key points on this, as far as timing goes, this will go to Planning Commission and City Council in September for consideration. Assuming that everything continues to move forward as planned, we will then start on the demolition of those existing buildings on Main Avenue, and including the remediation of all the soils in October. And then our intent is to try to have a clean site as early as possible, because a lot of the cleaning of the dirt that we need to do, the remediation of the dirt, has to happen on site while the dirt is not frozen. So there's a specific chemical component that we're mixing with a lot of that dirt, and we can't do that when the ground is frozen. So assuming, again, everything goes well, you'll see Building A, which is along Phillips Avenue, coming up out of the ground next spring and done by the spring of 2019 prior to the Levitt opening. Any questions?
Thank you, Erica. Does anyone have questions for her? Commissioner Barth?
So Erica, is it your plan, or is it the plan of the Lloyd companies to self-perform this environmental remediation, or will it be an outside contractor? And who oversees those contracts?
Yeah, if I went back and told our construction team that they had to do that, they wouldn't be very happy. So in terms of doing the actual environmental remediation, we contract all of that work through Geotech, typically. They're our consultant, and they have been on a lot of our projects downtown in which we've had to deal with various contamination issues.
Thank you.
Commissioner Karski, I think, was next.
Yeah, thank you. Erica, Lloyd Companies, first off, thanks for having the vision and the guts to proceed with a plan like this. There's a lot of risk involved in that, and I know the TIF kind of helps to mitigate that risk a little bit. Before our commission meeting, I was down in the auditor's office talking to Auditor Bob Litz about a project that we have going on, and one of the things we looked at is the who's paying the taxes in Minnehaha County, who's got the highest assessed value for taxes. Lloyd Companies is the #1 company in Sioux Falls in Minnehaha County for assessed value. Now, I don't know, I'm assuming that means that you guys probably pay the highest amount of property taxes too. So thank you for being a good steward and, the vision that you have as a company. I'm not a city councilor, I'm not a city planner. There'd be all sorts of questions I'd have, and I'm sure those questions will be asked. I just wanted to take the moment to thank you for coming in to brief us and to show us what you have on the books.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bender.
Thank you as well. I'm curious, as you know, we're in the process of working on constructing an addition to the jail downtown, and so parking is a big issue that we've been focused on. And so, you said there'd be 260 parking spots. Are those all underground?
Right. So we have 260 parking spots that will be provided underground, and that will service our project. So those 200 units that I talked about, the multifamily units, plus our commercial tenants, people that are operating businesses, they will all be served underground, which is important, I think. And then
I noticed there's a number. You've got 22 spots marked in the kind of the interior part.
Mm-hmm.
So how many total spots, if you get to do the diagonal parking all the way around, that you've got drawn in?
Yep.
Plus those 22 spots, do you know how many spots that is total?
Correct. So this parking lot on the interior of the courtyard, we're anticipating will be used by customers of that commercial business space. Along the exterior of the project, along the various public right-of-ways, Main Avenue, 2nd Street, and Phillips Avenue, right now we have designed around 150 public spaces that will be angled and owned, of course, by the city of Sioux Falls.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Erica? Commissioner Heiberger.
Again, thank you for bringing it. It's super exciting. It was really nice to have these because I was trying to scroll on my iPad or on my computer yesterday, and you just couldn't get a full picture. So this is just super nice, and excited what Lloyd is continuing to do in our community. This might not be a question for you, it might be for Dustin. I'm just wondering, what was the purpose or the reason of including Ransom Church in your TIF? Was it just because it's a box, or I mean, why did you include that?
Well, it definitely makes for a cleaner boundary for sure. Of course, they're not a tax-paying entity, but one of the things that they also have challenges with and concerns with is parking. So that's one of the conversations that we've had with them several times, including just yesterday for that matter. And they would really like that angled parking to extend further south to incorporate their building as well. And then at some point in the future, if they're able to accumulate enough in budget, basically, they would like to do some improvements to their building as well.
Okay.
And so I think that this allows them to potentially do that in the future.
Thank you.
Any other, excuse me, any other comments or questions? Again, thank you for your presentation. Enhancing downtown obviously helps all of us by the standpoint of going from $8,000 a year in property taxes to $450,000 to $500,000 a year based on your risk and our support, so to speak. Not everybody can do that, and it's nice to have a local company continually show that progression. So thanks for your support.
We appreciate that, and to Commissioner Bender's point, we're more than happy to meet with the county at any time and talk more about parking just in general for this entire area because it's going to be a challenge for everyone. So we're definitely very willing to do that at any point.
You don't really want to build a jail right there? I'm kidding.
Commissioner Bender, I have one more question, and maybe this is a question for future to talk with the jail group and stuff, but have you guys discussed at all where you're going to do staging? And I'm hoping you're not doing it in that parking lot that we all use. So and that's maybe a discussion question for later, but just concerned about where staging would be too, so.
Yeah, and the city's definitely expressed that as well. I mean, certainly, you know, we don't have various portions of Phillips Avenue, you know, one of our key,
Yeah.
you know, tourism-focused streets downtown blocked off as well. So I think we've got at least a temporary plan on how to do that, but definitely it's going to take some thought in getting that done. But no, we will not be taking that parking lot to do that, so.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Yes.
Dustin, you have other comments?
Yeah, just a few extra comments here. And Erica did a good job of actually summarizing a lot of these, so I will save us some time and go through these quickly. But as part of the TIF evaluation, obviously, we review the project financials. After reviewing the financials and the extraordinary costs that Erica described with the environmental remediation and then the other public improvements that are going to be with the public parking and the completion of 2nd Street, we did see a financial gap that was needed to be looked at and necessitated the application for the TIF. You know, we looked at what those TIF funds would go for, and so obviously we would go for those extraordinary costs. We also look at the benefits that this project will create for the area. You know, cleaning up those blighted properties and removing those buildings will definitely improve and enhance Main Avenue. Cleaning up in that environmental contamination will obviously help the overall area and the safety of everyone in that area. The additional parking that it added, and then obviously those infrastructure improvements. We also look to make sure that it aligns with our plans that we have as a city of Sioux Falls, and the goal and the goals and really the vision that's created with this plan or this project, you know, do and capture what we call out in our Shape Sioux Falls 2040 plan as well as the 2025 downtown plan. So given all that evaluation, as Erica said, there is a $4.1 million TIF request, and the city staff will be bringing that forward and recommending approval of that TIF request to the Planning Commission and City Council. And then we will be going, as stated by Erica, in September. So Planning Commission will be on September 6th, and then we'll be going for the approval in front of City Council on September 19th.
Thank you, Dustin.
Yep.
Anyone have any questions for Dustin? Mr. Ketchum, do you have any comments since you came over? Thanks, Darren.
Darren Ketchum, City of Sioux Falls Community Development. Thanks, Commissioners, for your comments today. We really appreciate that and understand the threshold to warrant public investment in these types of projects is very high, and we take that responsibility very highly. When we looked at this project, I think one of the things to hopefully just provide additional confidence to you is when we evaluate this, we actually brought in a third party to evaluate the financials that were provided to us to ensure that we didn't overlook something and that there just wasn't a mistake made. And so with that additional kind of independent party providing that objective review to really substantiate the need for this type of investment, it's something a little different than we've done in the past, but we're really proud that the project has stood up to that additional scrutiny and look forward to your continued support and the support of the Planning Commission and City Council in the next month. So certainly our team is always able to answer questions, whether it's today or in the future. So thank you again.
Thanks, Darren. Anyone have any questions for Darren? Thank you. Again, this was a briefing, so we'll look forward to the process. Thank you again for coming. Item 14 is to consider a motion to authorize the Emergency Management Director to sign a sub-recipient grant agreement for the 2018 between Minnehaha County and the South Dakota Department of Health to act as a fiduciary agent for management of Region 3 South Dakota Hospital Preparedness Program.
Commissioners,
What a
Linda
mouthful.
Young, and that was a mouthful.
Yeah.
Linda Young, Emergency Management. So in front of you, we have a request, or the last couple of years, we've been acting as a fiduciary agent for the State Department of Health in a regional hospital preparedness grant. So basically, the coalition of hospital and healthcare officials get together. They make out a budget. They put together the priorities. They hire an independent contractor to help with that.
What we do is we run the financials for them because they need a third party to do that. So we've done it for the last 3 years. For that, we get a 10% fiduciary. 10% is blocked off for the fiduciary agent for our work toward the effort. So I sit with that group. They make all the decisions based on spending priorities, and whether project completion is completed, and forward that stuff to us, and then we simply complete the finances as required by the grant administrative process. So in your packet or in your amount, you should have a budget. You should have a contractor's agreement for the independent contractor, and then you should also have the grant agreement with the state of South Dakota. So what I'm asking is for the commission to authorize the emergency manager to enter into the agreement with the State Department of Health, and to authorize the execution of required documentation, including the independent contractor agreement. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. Anyone have any questions for Lynn about the contract? Commissioner Karski?
And I'm sorry if I didn't catch it in the contract, but since we're the administrator of the contract for the program, do we get anything for taking care of that cost?
There's a 10% fiduciary recovery, so $12,500 on the $125,000 original grant amount.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions for Lynn? Thank
Second.
you. We have a motion and a second to approve the management agreement or grant agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Item B is to sign a consulting agreement with the city's consulting to provide partnership development and technical assistance to Region 3 South Dakota Hospital Preparedness Response Partners.
So commissioners, that goes directly along with this, and that's part of the execution of required documentation, including the independent contractor agreement. So I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the Region 3 Hospital Preparedness Contract. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes. Thanks, Lynn. And then we go to item 15, consider a motion to authorize the chairman and the director of emergency management to sign the 2018 state and local agreement between Minnehaha County and the state of South Dakota for county emergency management.
So commissioners, as you recall, the office is supported by a 50% or an up to 50% grant from the state government that actually flows through the federal office. That grant can be used for salary and other administrative expenses that are incurred while we complete the work program. That's also included within your packet. The grant requires the commissioner or the chairperson of the county commission to sign, and then I typically also sign underneath that chairperson, acknowledging the acceptance of the grant and the work program that's required with it. So I would be happy to answer any questions. This has been a long-standing agreement with Minnehaha County and the state of South Dakota for the 16 years that I've been here and for the many years previous to that.
I'd make a motion to authorize the chair to sign this.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to sign the county and state of South Dakota County Emergency Management Agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
I'd like to keep Lynn here for a moment. And
Go ahead.
Lynn, we briefly touched on this. Obviously, there's a ginormous disaster going on down in Texas. Have we been contacted, or is there any anticipation, and do we have any of the kinds of resources they might want down there?
You know, right now that terrible situation is still ongoing. It's affecting obviously many different people down there and everything. So we do have our ears open if there are any requests. We don't know that there's any request. If something like that would happen, it would come through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, which is an agreement between states to share resources during times of natural and other disasters. So we don't know that yet. I think in the past, the sheriff's office has sent assistance down to Hurricane Katrina and some of those things. I'm certain that if a request like this came up, he would come to you, or we would come to you and ask for for that authorization to do that. So while we haven't received any request, I'm sure that if one comes out, we would bring that forward in the timely fashion that it requires.
Good question. Thank you for the update. Item 16 is to authorize Minnehaha County Auditor to purchase statewide election equipment with HAVA, Help America Vote Act funds. Mr. Litz.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bob Litz from the Auditor's Office, and it's been quite a smorgasbord of events that you've had here today, and I'd like to remind you that usually dessert comes after the meal, so. No comments? Nobody's taking the bait? Okay. I also wanted to put a plug in that the Register of Deeds is having a United Way bake sale down there, so if you need sweetening today, well, you might stop there on your way.
We've already had that.
You've already had that. They already got you.
Got it.
I've been using this hallway over here to avoid them because the first item that I have on here out of the three, of course, is a follow-up to the presentation that I did 2 weeks ago concerning the express vote machines. I'd like to purchase them in replacement for the automarks and a few other uses for elections here. And they meet all the ADA federal requirements for federal elections in Minnehaha County. The expenditure for it would be $328,000, out of which it would come out of the HAVA funds as administered by the South Dakota Secretary of State. The number of machines would be 100. The machines were recently certified in South Dakota, recertified actually, so it's been quite a process following that through. And I'm ready for any questions that you might have.
Commissioner Benega?
Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Bender?
I know that this topic was addressed last week in our meeting, and you'd been here before. Could you just clarify what the HAVA funds are and what the relationship of the HAVA funds is to our general fund budget? And just basically for the listening audience, if nothing else, so that people understand that HAVA funds are completely separate from our general fund.
I'd be glad to, and I understand there was some controversies over the Argus Leader article that came out a week ago, but that was simply somebody forgot to read the article all the way through because it was mentioned there. But HAVA funds come out of the 2000 election problems, snafus that we had, and Congress decided to appropriate millions or billions of dollars and divide it among the states in order to improve elections. Well, that was 2000 and 2002. People started finally getting the money and the rules were promulgated. So that's where the money originally came from. HAVA is Help America Vote Act. And there were certain strings on, spending that money or accepting that money, and one of them is here today with these express vote machines being ADA compliant. So I think the total amount that South Dakota got was somewhere around $13 million, and it was divided up among the counties proportionately according to population and a few other factors. And then the state also has a chunk of that money that they've spent out on elections over that period of time. As today, as we speak, I have about $465,000 in that account. It is not part of the general fund. The commission cannot spend that money outside of something for elections. Like I say, it's been sitting in that account since 2004, and I'm asking you to release some of those funds today.
Thank you.
Commissioner Heiberger?
And just a point that HAVA funds did not come from our local property tax money.
Not at all. Not at all.
Commissioner Barth?
So not only it was not our tax, local tax money, it was not state tax money, it was federal money, right?
It was federal money specifically.
So it's
for
federal money
elections.
on the HAVA program that the state is administering, and we have a share of it.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
And this equipment's getting outdated, and given some of the controversies on elections lately, I think that updating this equipment would be a good move. So
Thank
I'm
you.
asking for action today through a simple motion to move forward with the purchase of these machines.
It's my motion.
We have
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the HAVA funds for equipment. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank
Second-
you.
Second item that I have here today is every year we have our annual tax deed sale, and I've provided you with a briefing and our tax deed worksheet, which is at the back of it, which gives you some ideas of the properties in question that are on the tax deed sale. Of course, it's incomplete until the appraisal board goes out, and to that end, I'm asking you to approve the appraisal board to meet on September 7th, 2017 at 10 a.m. And I've taken the liberty of reserving a vehicle for those folks, so we'll provide them with a vehicle. The board will tour the properties and make determinations as to the estimated market value and suggestions for dispensation of the properties. Following individuals have experience in the matter as follows: Ken McFarland, Kyle Helseth, and Dick Calamine. I'm requesting the commission grant the board permission to convene at the appointed time, go forth in the county vehicle and assess the tax deed properties for an estimated board value and make recommendations. This year, like I say, we have six properties scheduled for the sale. And as you can see, all these folks got a couple of former Director of Equalization and Ken McFarland. All of them are well equipped to do this job, and I'm grateful that they agree to do this for us. We do buy them a meal at the end of it all, but it hardly compensates them for all their efforts and skills in doing this. So actually, the county, in my view, owes these folks a debt of gratitude. They'll never collect it, but I think they're okay with that.
Thank you, Bob. Commissioner Heiberger?
When we had a tax deed, did this last year, we ended up with a couple properties that after we got done assessing them, that they were able to come in and pay their taxes and keep their homes. I know last year, Robert Wilson spent a lot of time with particularly one family, and maybe more than one, to keep them in their homes and make sure that they understood what was going on and help them come forward with the funds to pay their taxes. We don't want to kick anybody out of their houses, and I think we go to extreme to make sure that if they can pay their taxes and stay in their homes, we help them with that.
Absolutely, and in the context that Robert did last year, I think there was some indication by the people living in those homes that they would prefer to do that, and we've had none of that this year. So, and I've got some properties out there that are, when you deal with tax deed properties, there's usually a backstory behind it, and it's usually they're not good ones, and the people are in distress, the house is in distress, and so anytime we can display compassion and keep somebody in their house, I'm in favor of doing that. But it just wasn't apparent this year that we could do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr. Litz? If not, we have a motion and a second.
I would make a motion.
I will second it.
I was trying to get some movement. We have a motion and a second to authorize the appraisal board to review the tax deed properties on September 7th. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion unanimously passes. Item 18 is to consider a motion to approve the City of Sioux Falls changes to precinct numbering system. Mr. Litz.
Okay, third item that I have are city changes to the precinct numbers. And recently, the city formed a districting commission pursuant to the charter with the task of revising 5 council district boundaries so the population is more equitably distributed among them. As a result of the districting commission's work, 6 precincts were moved from one district to another. Boundaries of all these 6 districts did not change, only their number designation. They have adopted some changes and are documented in the information provided. And it was adopted by the City Council on August 15th, 2017. The changes to the precinct numbering system is where the city and county intersect, and the changes are outlined below. 1-8 is now 313, 1-2 is now 519, 2-4 is now 413, 3-7 is now 520, 3-8 is now 521, and 5-15 is now 414. Just question, do any of you know what your precinct number is?
213, I think.
Okay.
311.
City codified the changes above by ordinance August 15th, 2017 as well. In that same ordinance and unrelated to the district and commission works, boundary changes were made to precincts 4-6, 4-7, and 4-11. They did not change the legislative districts. These are land masses that was annexed in. There's no people out in there. And so they've been assigned to a district. To a precinct. Boundary cleanup between 4-6, 4-7 and 4-11. Those are the blue rectangles on your information. The previous boundary separating 4-6, 4-7, and 4-11 was not based on any existing physical geographical features like a road or another jurisdiction line. They were just assigned. Change incorporates existing roads for a more definable boundary where possible. Upon approval by the commission, the county elections office will implement changes in our street master. And that's where this comes important, because during a city election, we want to make sure people get the right information out there as to where they're voting and what their precinct number is, and make sure they get the right ballot. So that's the intersection of the county and the city. Mr. Tom Greco is here. He's the city clerk from City of Sioux Falls to address any questions you might have. He's the one that actually did the work. I'm down here presenting to get this approved. And I would also remind you, this happens every couple of years. It's pretty routine work. So I looked it over good, and I agree with the city and don't see any problems, and looking for a motion to approve the designs.
Commissioner Karski?
These changes are necessitated by population, registered voters, that type of thing. How many registered voters are there per city council district now? Do you?
Boy, Tom might have to answer that one.
Commissioner Tom Greco, Sioux Falls City Clerk, and also the election official. So there's approximately, it ranges from about 30,000 to 35,000 per council district.
Per district times 5. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Litz or Mr. Greco? If not, is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the precinct numbering system. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion unanimously passes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks for coming and sitting through. 19 is the Commissioner Liaison Reports. Does anyone have any? Commissioner Barth?
We met here last night at the Planning and Zoning, and we had some difficult issues, but I would say we did our best to emulate Solomon and cut the baby in half and made people, gave them a shot at being okay with things. There was some discussion with the Del Rapids and Sioux Falls planning commissions about changing our limits on outbuildings. And that's a little bit up for debate, but right now, if you want, you know, a larger outbuilding, it comes to us, and it was thought that a 2,400 square foot building would be better for some folks, and the Del Rapids people thought that way. The city Sioux Falls people were uncertain, and so anyway, there could be some changes there. When you go to these things, there are probably 8 out of 13 of these items are going to be people that want an outsized building for some purpose. And I would also say that we were a little worried about some disruptive stuff. There was none, so not that the individuals weren't there.
Okay. Thank you. Any other liaison reports? If not, we'll go, excuse me, sorry. We'll go to new business. Any new business? Any old business? Commissioner Barth?
You know, we've now had, it appears, another murder in town, and recognizing that we've not approved our final budget, I would like to suggest that we might consider adding another person in the state's attorney's office with this continued steady crime wave that we have. And I recognize that that's not always a popular thing, but the citizens gave us the option of spending this money, expecting to get value for their tax money, and I believe that's what Minnehaha County gives our taxpayers, is value for their money. And anyway, I might bring this up again because I do have concerns.
We adopt the final budget on September.
Next week.
No.
When it's initially announced, or
Oh, that's
the hearing?
Yeah.
That's right, the hearing.
Towards the end of September when the final approval will come.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
Sorry.
it's the last or second to the last Tuesday in September.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, Cindy, Commissioner Heiberger, you talked about some additional funding perhaps necessary for that other group that we're establishing. Do we know what kind of funds that might be?
No, not at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Any other old business? There is no executive session today, so looking for a
let's go
motion
home.
to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion unanimously passes. Thank you.
One thing I almost brought up in old business is where we